Hello, everybody. Today is Friday, June the 7th. Hope you're having a good start to the summer season. It's cold and gray every day, so we're in our June gloom situation. So anyway, I wanted to today go over the buyer contingency removal form, the CRB. Been getting a lot of questions on this. So I wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page with this. Basically, the form is pretty self-explanatory. The top part is filled out accordingly. And then we get into what you're actually removing contingency-wise. The buyer has a lot of choices now that in previous versions of this form they did not have. So you can be very specific as to what contingencies you are or are not removing, beginning with the investigations. As you can see, well, we can start with the loan or the appraisal. That's pretty simple. But when you get into C, the investigation of properties, you can see that there are four different choices. And of that, there's an exceptions and some other ones that are brought out by themselves, which they fire insurance and flood insurance. So you want to make sure that if you've done your physical inspection, but have not received seller's disclosures, or you have other investigations to still continue on, other reports and stuff, you can separate it all out. So number C2, only part of the investigation related to inspections concerning physical attributes of the property. You're just removing that contingency, but you still have the rest. You're still looking for insurability, fire insurance, flood insurance, other things. You'd have exceptions in there. Then the next one would be you might have done the home inspection but haven't received the seller's documents yet. So here you can have a contingency because you haven't reviewed all the seller documents, or you have. Either way, you can report on that. The prelim, the HOA docs, and any leased or liened items, those are all separate as well. So you can be very specific, like I mentioned earlier, as to what or what not you're removing as far as the contingency is concerned. There's one about sale buyer's property, and then all contingencies are removed except, to make it even easier at the end, let's say you do decide to remove all contingency except the loan or the appraisal or selling a property, there's paragraph 3 you can use as well. So if you want to remove all your contingency except the loan contingency, this is where you go. You go to 3, check that box, and check loan contingency. And that means to the seller, you've removed everything else, just waiting for the loan to be approved. And then 4 is removing all contingencies, completely. And if you read that paragraph, next paragraph that is in bold, once all contingencies are removed, whether or not buyers satisfy themselves regarding all contingencies or received any information relating to those contingencies, buyer may not be entitled to return of buyer's deposit if buyer does not close escrow. This could happen even if, for example, buyer does not approve of some aspects of the property or lender does not approve buyer's loan. That being said, be sure that if you remove all contingencies, that the buyer has instructed you to do so, and the buyer understands that once they remove all contingencies, and if they don't close escrow, the chance of them getting their deposit back is slim. Now, the opposite of that is if there's a contingency left, which we've been having a lot of questions on that as well, generally speaking, the buyer is entitled to the deposit. And I say generally because there are some cases where I won't say fraud's involved, but you've been stalling and the loan can't get approved, and this and that, or the loan can get approved, but you get somebody to say it can't, and then you don't remove the contingency and you cancel. There could be some question as to that, but for the most part, if you don't remove your contingencies, the seller cannot keep the deposit legally. Now, that's not saying they won't keep it because they're mad or whatever, but that doesn't mean they're entitled to it. So keep in mind, if all contingencies are removed, the buyer makes that decision, removes all the contingencies, and the buyer understands that their deposit probably will not be returned if they don't close escrow. And so just to make sure they understand that. And again, if there are contingencies left, that the buyer is entitled to his deposit, even though the time frame's expired. In other words, you had 10 days to remove your inspection contingency. On day 15, you haven't removed it, and then you decide, oh, we're going to cancel. Doesn't matter. As long as you did not remove the contingency, that time period doesn't really matter. The seller might say, oh, well, once we pass the 10th day, then we get your deposit, and that's not true. So again, if you have questions on this or any other forms, feel free to call broker support. We're always here to help, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great week.